Hi, my name is Joanna Nakfor. I'm a Senior Mobile Technical Account Manager here at Red Hat, and I'm going to be presenting a step-by-step tutorial for continuous integration of Jenkins on a Red Hat mobile native Android application. This is part 2 of the tutorial, and in this part we're going to set up Jenkins for continuous integration for Android native applications. For prerequisites, we are assuming that you have Jenkins installed on your Fedora, you have an Android SDK also installed on your Fedora, and you have set up Jenkins for Android Git and Gradle plugins, and that you have created an Android emulator from command line as you saw in the blog. The topics covered in this video session: we're going to set up an SSH on RHMap in Jenkins, and we're going to create a Jenkins project to run the Android test. So first, for setting up SSH, we are going to go to our machine or command line, and we are going to generate a public and private key by using the command ssh-keygen. I'm not going to do it here because I already done it before. And then when the command line asks us for the folder to put it, please make sure that you specify /var/lib/jenkins, and then it should put it there in your .ssh folder. So let's look here. This is the folder you need to specify, var/lib jenkins, and this is the .ssh folder that will be generated from from our original command line. Now, if we look at the owner of the public and private keys, IDRSA and IDRSA.pub, make sure that they are owned by Jenkins and not the user that you have to log in as. So if they're not, please use change owner to make sure that it is Jenkins. So now on our Fedora machine, we have the private and public key. What we're going to do next is we're going to go to the Red Hat mobile application portal, and we are going to create a new user. So let's go to our portal, go admin, users, create new user, and you're going to put in Jenkins, optional, and then you can put a password optional too. Make sure you have at least read access to the source code and write, and then we're going to do create user. After we create the user, if we go back users, we should see the Jenkins user listed as one of the users. Let me see it right here. So now, after we have created the Jenkins user, what we need to do is we need to log out and log back in as Jenkins, and then we go we click on this icon here. After we log out and log in as Jenkins, we go to settings and SSH key management and add new key, and you make sure you copy paste the public key in here in your label options. So now we have our Jenkins SSH key on our machine from Fedora associated with our public key on our RHMap portal. Now that we have all this set up, we are going to go to the dashboard, to the Jenkins dashboard, and we are going to go to credentials, system, and we're going to do global credentials. As you can see, I've created one before for Jenkins, and then we're going to do add new credentials. Here we're going to put SSH private key, username should be Jenkins, and then we're going to do from file Jenkins master, make sure it's var/lib jenkins ssh IDRSA. We don't need any passphrase, and we hit OK. So in the end, if we go back to our credentials, our global credentials, we should see one for Jenkins. So now we have Jenkins using the right public-private key SSH that we have for our account that is associated with the RHMap. So let's create a new project to build the Android, to build and run the Android tests, and I have done that before. I'm going to look at Android unit test all. I'm going to go configure, and let's look at the configuration. Give it any name that's meaningful to you, some description. Use Git, copy and paste the Git URL to your client app from the portal, like we did before, and then make sure you pick Jenkins as the credentials to use. We have to run the emulator because we have an instrumented test that needs to run, so we hit run and Android emulator during build, and we make sure we select the right name of the Android emulator that we have created in advance. We use Gradle wrapper, and the tasks that we're running are clean, assemble, connected Android test. We will install the APKs on the emulator, and we will archive the artifacts, and we will publish the JUnit test reports. There are two of them, one for unit tests under app, build, test result, debug, start.xml, and the end instrumented test under app, build, outputs, and or test results connected. So now we're good. We can hit save and apply. I'm just going to run this to show you. I'm going to do build now, and we're going to go to the build, look at the console output, and see what's happening. The first thing that it's going to do is try to do a git pull. Then it's going to try to run the emulator, and as you see the plugin, the emulator plugin here, is going to wait for a while for the emulator to actually boot up, start, and get ready. And that takes a while. So you'll see that the plugin keeps checking the emulator to see if it's ready. This is it's saying that the startup process is running, and that's the boot up process. Once it's done, it will send some key events to unlock the display, so unlock the emulator, and then do the build, and then run the unit tests and the instrumented unit tests. So it'll take a couple of minutes. Still running. So now we see that the startup process has stopped. And we're sending it key events to unlock the emulator screen. Now we're doing the Gradle tasks for building and doing the unit tests. So this is the same thing we saw in part 1, only Jenkins is running it this time on Fedora. This is the longest part of the build. Takes a couple of minutes. So we see that the build is successful. Now what it's going to do is it's going to try to uninstall first and then reinstall the APK and the emulator. We've stopped the end of the emulator and we are done. So we can go ahead and look at the results. Go back to status of the project. We can see the artifacts that it built and saved. Then we can go to test results. In the test results, we're going to see the instrumented test and the unit tests. Let's go to the first one. These are the instrumented tests, and as we did before, the application test is going to show the test hello world on screen. And if we go back to test results and go to the unit tests, we are going to see the number operation utility test, with test adding 2 numbers and test multiplying 2 numbers, and they both have passed. And this is it for part 2 of our tutorial. Thank you very much for listening.